The woman began by saying she disagreed with several points made earlier, but that she wanted to focus on a different issue. She explained that the speaker is married to a woman who isn't Christian and still identifies as Hindu, something she found while looking up her background. She then pointed out that their children are being raised in a home with mixed cultural, racial, and religious influences. Her question was how he teaches his children to value both parents' beliefs equally, how he ensures they don't grow up thinking one religion or one background is superior to the other. She also asked how he reconciles this with his political stance on immigration. She expressed frustration, saying many immigrants came to the US believing in a promise: if they worked hard, followed the rules, and paid what was required, they could build a life here. Now, she said, it feels like they're being told there are too many immigrants and that they no longer belong. Before finishing, she asked another question. She said she isn't Christian, yet she still supports the idea of unity and American values. So why, she asked, does it feel like being Christian is treated as a requirement to be accepted or seen as a true supporter of the country? She didn't understand why faith should be a measure of patriotism. The speaker listened and reassured her there was no issue with her expressing herself. He then addressed the immigration point first. He explained that while he personally believes immigration levels should be lower, he also believes the US must honor any commitments it has already made. If the government promised a path or a process to someone, it must follow through. I don't agree with many of the things you said earlier, but that's not the main reason I'm speaking now. What I really want to ask is this. You are married to someone who isn't Christian. I checked her background because I was curious, and I saw she still identifies as Hindu. You're raising your children in a home that mixes different cultures, races, and religions. How do you teach them about both sides of their identity? How do you make sure your beliefs don't overshadow their mother's beliefs? And when you talk about immigrants, how do you explain to your kids that their dad, who came here not too long ago, is somehow different from their mom, whose family has only been here a little longer? How do you balance all that? And about immigration, when did you decide there were suddenly too many immigrants? Many of us came here because this country promised us opportunity. We spent our youth and money here, working hard. You don't owe us anything, but we also don't deserve to be treated like we no longer belong. Just because the rules changed, how can you say the system allowed us in, benefited from us, and then tell us now that there are too many of us? I also want to add one more thing. You mentioned Christianity earlier. I'm not Christian, but I'm here showing support. Why is being Christian still treated like a requirement to belong or to prove our love for this country? Why should anyone feel pressured to share a specific religion just to be accepted? There was a lot in your question, and I'll answer as much as I can. First, about immigration. I believe the US should reduce future immigration numbers. But if the government has already made a legal promise to someone, then of course that promise must be honored. I'm not talking about people who followed the law. I'm referring to people who entered the country illegally and about adjusting future immigration levels. I am not saying we'll take away the rights of people who came here properly. But just because some people came legally and contributed doesn't mean the country is obligated to accept unlimited numbers forever. My responsibility as vice president is to prioritize the people already here. Times change, and policies also have to change. Now, about my family. Yes, my wife grew up in a Hindu household, though not a very religious one. When we met, both of us were basically agnostic. Over time, we talked about faith and how we wanted to raise our kids. We agreed to raise them Christian. Our two older children attend a Christian school, and our oldest recently had his first communion, which meant a lot to him. Every family with mixed beliefs has to find what works for them. For us, open conversation and mutual respect guide our decisions. My wife often comes to church with me, and yes, I hope that someday she will feel moved by the same things that changed me. But whether she does or not is her choice, and I respect that. Everyone has free will, and love means working these things out together as a family. One of the core ideas in Christianity is respecting each person's free will. In our home, that applies to my wife as well. She's actually very close with the priest who baptized me. They talk about faith often. For me, the way you handle differences in a marriage or family is by talking openly, trusting that God has a plan, and doing your best to follow it together. Now, I want to touch on one last point before we move on, because there are many people waiting. You asked about the right number of immigrants the country should welcome. The truth is that number has always depended on the moment in history. For example, in the 1920s, the US passed a law that sharply reduced immigration almost to zero for about 40 years. During that time, people who had come earlier from many different cultures were expected to integrate into American society. And for the most part, that is what happened. Today, the situation looks different. I think we face two major challenges with immigration. You might lean a bit more liberal politically, or maybe not, and that's fine. But I remember when I first started getting involved in Republican politics, someone from a think tank once told me that diversity could be used in a way that makes people distrust each other, and that weakens things like labor unions. So when I hear people on the left say we should accept endless numbers of immigrants without limits, I think we're risking the very social trust that holds this country together. To answer your question directly, the amount of immigration we've had recently is far higher than what I believe is healthy for the country right now. If we want to feel like one nation again, we can't keep bringing people in at such high levels. That's why our current policies focus on reducing those numbers.
Final point. So I don't want to cut you off. I want to